And you've just heard Agata, the new single from the Passing Sages. And I'm delighted to be joined by Nic from the band now. Hello, Nic.
Hello, hello, Alistair. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you so much for playing the track.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Before we talk about the band, what can you tell us about Agata?
Well, it's a song that's been in the works for some time. So when the band, I know we're going to talk more about the history of the band in a minute, but when the band first started out, I was doing a lot of work with a local songwriter called Jonathan Kearney. So it was actually an idea that he first had, and he kind of brought it to me, and we tore the whole thing apart, worked out chords, worked out parts, did loads of things with it, and then we've had it in our set for the last few years now, and it's always been a song that's gone down really, really well. I think it's just got this perfect blend of, it's basically, for me, this song is like everything that the Passing Sages tried to do from the get-go, which was incorporate all of this sort of like 70s, 80s disco sort of flair with sort of more modern sort of sensibilities and stuff. So I think this track is like the culmination of everything we've ever done, kind of all coming together in one. So basically the song tells the story of, and I'm totally not going to read our song description that I've got beside me, but it tells the story of a force that chooses someone when they're feeling down or low in confidence, and with electric energy puts them in a euphoric mood. And me and Jonathan, the original writer, we've had so many conversations about, we never wanted to make a statement of who or even what Agata is. We'll leave that up to the listener's interpretation. It could be a person, it could be a thing, it could be absolutely anything. But yeah, and it just oozes all this sort of like early 80s Motown and disco stuff all together in what is just a fantastic song. I hope other people think that. At least it always goes down so well when we play it live.
It's funny you should say that, because I think it's a great example of what you do best, which is a real soul funk song, but also bringing it. It's a song that every time you listen to it, you hear something else that you didn't before, and maybe that's the kind of depth of the production going on. You go, oh, there's strings there, there's lots of different things kind of happening in it. So talk a bit about your music and your influences. Why was this kind of music for you in the band?
So I guess when this project first started off, it was myself and our bass player Ian and our original drummer Sean. We had just come off the back of like another project, which was more a sort of pop rocky type thing, and we weren't really sure what we wanted to do next. And the three of us have such like a wide range of like interests. And it wasn't until I started doing some work with Jonathan Kearney that he proposed the idea that we become, in a sense, his backing band. So we were doing our own stuff on the side, which was more sort of like funk rock, sort of Red Hot Chili Peppers type stuff. And we just kind of started doing these songs with Jonathan. And then I quickly realized that I just had such a love for this sort of style of music. I mean, one of my guitar heroes and music icons is Nile Rodgers from Chic.
Yeah.
So everything, it was weird. Like when I started working on this stuff with Jonathan, I started finding it so natural to write guitar parts and arrange the songs, whereas I thought my focus before that was all like rock bands and stuff, and people see me with like the long hair and the black clothes and they think he's a metal guitarist and they think that's all I'm into. But I kind of discovered this sort of like passion for soul, pop, funk, disco type stuff that just seemed to come so naturally, at least when working with Jonathan originally on it.
It's interesting because Chic are one of my favourite bands. Absolutely, I love them. Yeah. And I guess still disco has certain connotations for some people, but the best disco music is absolutely up there with, the very best. And often Nile Rodgers has been involved with it. And
yeah, people don't even realise how many things he's been involved with.
No, absolutely. You'll get Bowie fans. I mean, they probably do know the real Bowie fans that he was involved because it's been spoken about so much, but just so many different things that he's been involved in particular. But the rhythm section of Chic as well is something that, was just kind of blew everyone else out the water.
Absolutely. And what I love about them, like Nile Rodgers' music and Chic in general, is there's on the top layer, they're really like catchy, straightforward songs that people can sing along with. You dig deeper and there's just layers and layers and layers of loads of interesting stuff, loads of interesting chords and flavors and textures going on. So that, I think, definitely like a huge influence. And then obviously other groups like things that me and Jonathan would discuss a lot are bands like sort of Earth, Wind and Fire, and of course ABBA. I think ABBA are another group that get, I don't know, they get this sort of bad rep. Sometimes people think, oh, that's just that pop group that people sing at karaoke. But again, if you really look at their songs, they're so technical and they're incredible. And there's a reason why that music like sort of stood the test of time. But yeah, I loved what you said there about disco sometimes has like these negative connotations, and it does. But the hilarious thing is, you play it live, people can't help but dance. People can't help but just have fun. And I think that was a big thing from the get-go as well, as we wanted to focus on making. Don't get me wrong, there's time and a place for sad songs, emotional songs, deep songs, and I love those. There's loads of my favorite songs are like that. But we really wanted to kind of bring some fun and joy to things a little bit. And there's been this constant little thing whenever we're writing a song, we're like, right, is this song too sad? Do we need to cheer it up somehow? Because sometimes we do just need a little bit of, I don't know, joy in our life.
And so you mentioned ABBA and Chic and Earth, Wind and Fire, and I can totally hear all of those. Are there any other influences that you would mention?
Oh man, there's like so many things like Shaka Khan and Prince as well. Like we actually for a while we do like a Shaka Khan / Prince mashup, which is actually it's two Prince songs put together because he wrote some songs for Shaka Khan.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, and then personally for myself, like from the more sort of rock side of stuff, I'm a massive Extreme fan, but at the core of all Nunabet and Court's licks, it's all really funky and rhythmic stuff. So it's kind of all of that, and oh man, there's too many. The list could go on and on and on. But everything from even things like the Commodores and stuff as well. Just all this great music that what I love about going back and looking at some of these older tracks is, again, it's like the layers and the texture underneath, where I just know from like going through studying music at uni and college and then teaching guitar, so often I'm teaching songs or I was learning songs there where it's like, it's just these really basic flavors underneath. And there's this joy, and when I go back to listen to these older tracks, I'm like, there's so much more going on there. Yeah, on the top, there's this really nice simple melody that you love, but for those that want the extra flavor underneath, and I think that's what we tried to bring to the table with the Sages a bit as well.
And all these bands that you've mentioned have got the bands themselves can really play. Mm-hmm. You know, I think about Motown, and you've got the house band in Motown, and they're just these most phenomenal musicians that they could use. I think that's the thing, is the playing. People maybe hear funk or they hear, they might say disco, but some of the musicianship that's going on there is at the highest level. Yeah,
I think because a lot of these musicians as well, they know their place, and they know when they need to do the fancy thing, and they know when they just need to lock it in and be absolutely solid. Because I know for myself, being a guitarist, we're constantly pressured into like the really fast, shreddy stuff and playing a million notes. And I just got to this point where I realized that didn't actually excite me anymore. What excited me was these funky rhythms and flavors. It's all about flavors. Maybe I just really like food as well.
So you've mentioned a little bit about the history of the band and how, you know, you started making this kind of music, but then how did it develop to the band we know today?
So after myself, Ian and Sean and Jonathan worked together for a good few months, if not, no, it was a good like year and a bit actually, because we had another singer involved, and they went away to Australia for like months to travel, came back and then realized they didn't want to really do music anymore. So we just worked as the four of us for a while, and we did some gigs actually where we were like the backing band for Jonathan. But he knew himself, the performing wasn't where he was really wanting to be. He wanted to be behind the scenes, writing the songs, doing all that sort of stuff. So it was about sort of August 2018, I believe it was. We started looking for a singer to front the band, and at the time there wasn't really, we didn't have a sort of idea in mind of exactly what we wanted, but I think we were verging on this idea. We maybe wanted a female at the front, just because in a weird way, whenever Jonathan would write vocal melodies, he'd write these really, really high, difficult parts. I don't know if, again, it's this sort of Earth, Wind and Fire falsetto type thing, or the Isley Brothers and all that sort of stuff, but he was writing stuff up there, and we're like, right, we need people that can get up there. So we put the word out that we were looking for people, and we had a few people get in touch, and then we had these two we had Holly and Carrie get in touch with us. And I think what it was actually is Jonathan had approached Holly because he knew her before. They'd done a few things. I think Jonathan knew Holly's dad, and I realized I actually knew Holly before as well. We'd played like on a few bills at gigs together, and turns out years after like a year or two of being in the band, we discovered we'd done a theatre show once in Kirkcaldy together when we were in like primary school or like first or second year. We didn't remember each other from it, but we were both in it. So we held these auditions, and going into it, I think we were just looking for one, like one singer, and we did them both, and I immediately was like, both are amazing. And I could feel straight away. I was like, I think their voices are going to work together. And I was going heavy into my Nile Rodgers phase at that time. And I was like, let's just do the Chic thing. Let's do the ABBA thing. It means we can have harmonies constantly live that are just brilliant. I love as well, sometimes not even just doing the harmonies, but sometimes just singing in unison and the power that comes from that. It's amazing. So we put the idea to both of them. We were like, right, would you be interested in this? And luckily they both said yes. And it was great. They didn't know each other beforehand, but very quickly their voices just went right together. It was like a match made in heaven. It was excellent. And then a few months after that, we did our first gig at PJ's in Dunfermline, supporting another great local band called Moonlight Zoo at their sort of big Christmas do that they did. And that was like one of our first main gigs together.
I mean, I think the first track of yours I heard was Destiny, which I'm going to play later on. And it's rare to hear a band who are new to you who sounds so fully formed, as if they've been going. And that and maybe it was because it ticked a lot of my musical boxes, and you had the Chic references, and the Shaka Khan one's a great reference. But did you quickly become that band that's on that record? Did it work gel quite well?
Yeah, I think so, because that was our second release that we put out. The first release we did was a track called Your Love Makes Me Happy that also we released on that another track called I Was Wrong. And so a bunch of those songs like that one and also Destiny were already pretty much written before we had Holly and Carrie in the band. So it was a case of they came in, we maybe rearranged bits, changed keys of stuff, sorted things out so it worked for them. And yeah, kind of very quickly it all just came together. I think some of these ideas as well, although it seems like they came together really quickly, some of them are ideas Jonathan had when he was in like his 20s. So that was a good like 30 years ago. So there's some of them are ideas he's been toying with for ages and just hasn't had the sort of vessel for them to get out there. So that was kind of special as well, because I felt this extra, not pressure as such, but responsibility that I was kind of the one leading the charge with getting these songs that have been around for a while, but now getting them out there a little bit. So no, it did kind of come together quite quickly, because we put the first EP or the first single out in sort of May 2019, and then Destiny came out. It was the start of 2020 before everything went wrong.
Well, I was going to ask you that because it sounds to me, I mean, I've never seen you live. I would love to see you live, but it sounds like live is a big part of what you do. You don't make this kind of music just, I think, to be sat and heard in someone's room. It's about being together and the dancing and the, sing along and all those kind of things. So lockdown must have hit you pretty hard in that sense when you're just about to kind of maybe move up a level.
Yeah, I think we'd done a lot of work prior to when lockdown and stuff happened, and I think we were in quite a fortunate position. There was so many other people that had a much worse time during lockdown. We were in I guess in a nice place where we hadn't gone over the top yet. We weren't at that point where the passing stages was our life and was our career, and so in that sense it was kind of fine. Yeah, we were just starting to get the ball rolling, and then it just kind of stopped. Yeah. But then it meant that we actually still worked loads over lockdown. We were doing a lot of Zoom meetings together. We were doing a lot of luckily quite a few of us have recording stuff at our home, so we were recording and working on stuff. And actually during lockdown, that's when I think what it was, we'd pretty much done most of our recording for what was going to be the Burning Up EP that we then released at the end of that year. We'd done a bunch of it already. And then what was nice, because we had all this time, originally on the track we had loads of like MIDI trumpets and trombones and stuff. And what was great was I was suddenly like, right, I've got time. I used to play clarinet. I still do. I was like, right, I'm going to put real clarinet on it. And then I was like, Ian, can I just come and get your saxophone. I used to play tenor saxophone, so I was like, surely this can't be any harder. The hardest thing was I had to transpose everything from guitar to clarinet to it was a nightmare. But yeah, it meant that then on this track we put real instruments on it, and to me that kind of elevated the tracks on that a little bit. So it was kind of nice having that sort of forced lockdown and forced pause and everything. Actually meant we could do more work on it and improve it and better it. And then we planned our music video, and basically as soon as certain restrictions lifted in that August of 2020, we were over at a warehouse in Edinburgh and filmed the Burning Up video, which turned out fantastic. Yeah. And then released the EP in November that year. So no, in a weird way, certain elements of it were good because we could focus a bit more on our craft a little bit. But yeah, it meant that there was no playing live and there was no practicing together. And
what about the future of the band? Because you mentioned before we started talking, it's maybe not as certain as it once was.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm absolutely gutted with what's happened recently. Basically, Holly came to us like last week, I think it was, and has just kind of come to the realization that maybe music isn't something that she wants to be a focus of her life in the way that it is. I think she wants to enjoy it more as like a love and a hobby rather than feeling it as like a job, which from the get-go, that's been the case with the Passing Stages. We haven't approached how we do everything like it's a hobby. It is a hobby, don't get me wrong, but we've approached it in a very business-like way. There's a reason for everything. Everything's been very structured, and we're always pushing forward. So she made that announcement last week, just before we did a gig last Friday, and everyone was feeling a bit like, oh my goodness, because from when she came into the band, she has become a huge part in the band. The main sort of core team, I would say, in terms of the writing has been myself, Jonathan, and then Holly. So a lot of she brings in a lot, it's great, she brings in a lot more of the sort of modern side of stuff.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan brings in a lot more of the retro, and I kind of like, my job is like to merge it all together. So after she kind of said all that, the initial thought was like, oh my goodness, like literally things are feeling like they're just starting to take off now. Like this year has been our busiest and most successful year as a band. Agatha is now our third release out, and the other two we put out have already got each over 20,000 streams. They've been getting out loads of radio plays. We were doing festivals all the way throughout the summer. We had our first tour as well during the summer, and we're already booked at the moment to play Mugstock Festival next year because it was meant to be on this year and it got postponed. And there's a bunch of other festivals that have already come like our way, and so it was like, oh my goodness, everything is just kind of happening, and it's all kind of stopping. So we then had a meeting as a band to see what the options were. Hopefully, maybe because Holly had mentioned that she really enjoys the writing side of stuff and the production. So I was like, well, maybe there's an option for you to work in that capacity. But she's very like, no, she just wants to kind of take a break from everything, which is fair enough. But then, unfortunately, that meant that both Carrie, our other singer, and Daniel kind of said the same thing. They, in their mind, were like, we don't see how this works without Holly. And I was like, because I feel like it can. I feel the music is so good and so strong. I was speaking to this with my mum a few days ago. Even like Carrie's performance over the last like 6 months has gone through the roof. I don't know if it's that she's just not got the confidence to be up there on her own, but she totally could manage that stage on her own. Or we could have looked for another singer. So that's kind of where things are at the moment, in that it's kind of like the end of the Passing Stages. But myself and Ian, we are so passionate about the music, and we know that the music's good enough. So I guess if there's anyone listening that wants to be in a band that does this sort of music, we've got stuff lined up. So get in touch, because I'm hopeful that we can reform something from it, because I think I feel personally it's too much work, and too work that's been too positive to kind of just let it all go.
I mean, it sounds very recent and probably very raw. So thanks for coming on and letting us know. And I do wish you all the best with whatever you do in the future. It sounds like yourself anyway is going to still be involved in music. And from a personal or perhaps selfish point of view, I really hope the Passing Stages keep going, because I would love to see you live. As I said, I haven't managed to so far. So I really do hope it all works out.
Me too. And I mean, we're one of those bands where I think on our Google Drive in the song idea bit, there's like a good 50, 60 songs sitting there. A lot of them very fully formed. We just haven't had time to get around to them. So I know that there's a big catalogue of work there that we'd love to get to. I mean, Ian joked there was about the possibility of doing a sort of Nile Rodgers and Chic thing where it now becomes Nic Holson and the Passing Sages, and we get other people in, or we find a Sister Sledge type group and we just become their backing band or something. But I'm hopeful that we can do something with it. I mean, I'm in another band as well called Stay for Tomorrow, which is completely different. It's like alt rock type stuff. And that hopefully, I don't want to jinx anything, but that's going really well at the moment. We just got a new bass player who's phenomenal, so I don't want to jinx that. But yeah, I definitely, this isn't the end of me doing music for sure, but I'm just I'm worried what I'm going to do with all my sparkly jackets.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You're going to get.
I can't wear this and Stay for Tomorrow.
Well, do keep in touch with new music from Stay for Tomorrow and also from the Passing Sages or whatever that becomes. But Nic, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's been great.
Oh, thank you so much, Alistair. It's been great.
I think Agata is a really, really strong single. So, all the best with it.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, I think even though this has come to the end of the Passing Stages, everyone has said that we're so proud of the work we've done. And I in a way, it's kind of nice that Agata's the one that we've put out now because it's the culmination of everything, I feel, and it shows us off in the best light.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the Passing Sages, and a particular favourite of mine. This is Destiny.